Darrel, we got Jay on the line. What do you want to ask him today?
Things that seem to be changing so fast, in the market here with, finding like HELOCs are harder to find. What would you do, I guess? Would you kind of hold or sell and do something else?
Only you're going to know the right move. If I can't answer this new opportunity, like how it aligns with my 300 generational wealth building goal, if I can't answer that question like that, it's a no. I'm not going to go explore that opportunity. As you continue to do this, you're going to have plenty of opportunities come up. If you're holding on to it, man, you're doing a HELOC because a deal is going to come up. And I think, at least in the markets that we look at, right, I think we're about to enter a buy-in season and people with cash are going to be king.
Hey, I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different from everything else out there. I bring together new and aspiring investors on each and every episode and let the aspiring investors ask the questions that they need answered. And if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably have the same questions. So before you get to this episode that we have prepared for you, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that little notification bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. As always, very excited for this show today. We've got two amazing people on the line with us. We got Jay Helms and Darrel Hernandez with us today. As is tradition, our experienced investor up to bat first. First of all, welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming on the show today. Jay, you're going to be up to bat first. How are you doing today?
Good, man. I appreciate you having me on. You're saying you've been a follower of mine for a while. I've been following you for a while. I'm kind of envious of what you've done with your podcast. So I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk to Darrel. Hopefully, I've been doing a lot of podcast recordings here of lately. And my goal is to at least have one listener take that next action item to close a multifamily deal or whatever the podcast format is. And so hopefully Darrel is my one member audience. We're going to focus on Darrel and we're going to get him his multifamily.
Yeah, that's one thing I do love about this podcast format is you really have a one member audience and, hopefully it appeals to a much wider audience. Darrel, it's really, the pressure's on you to ask good questions so that everybody, so 100% pressure on you and you're going to make or break this. Just teasing, but
I prepared before, so I think I have some doozies here.
All right. Sounds great. This is going to be great. He's going to play Stump the Chump later, Jay, so get ready.
I'm familiar with the game.
All right. So Jay, do us a favor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I started investing in real estate back in 2014. At that, I say actively investing. I have what I call a false start. I bought my first single family live-in flip in 2008. We all know now that was a big mistake, but really where we got active and really started seeing some leaps and bounds of gains was in 2014. And I got there because of the company that I was a principal at. I was employee number 5. We had grown to the point where we were sold. And man, that acquisition went horribly. It was extremely bad. And it just made me realize, hey, and there was kind of a trifecta of events. Within about a 3-month time span, I got married. A couple of months after we got married, found out we were pregnant with our first child. Then the acquisition happened. And so if you're recently married, have kids on the way, that pressure that comes, you're just like, what in the heck am I doing in my life? What's going
stress,
on? All this stress stuff comes up. And so then there's the financial piece, right? And we were living paycheck to paycheck, and I was extremely worried and started Googling how do rich people get wealthy, and that led me to real estate. So that's kind of how I got started. Went back to the single family route, started buying single family long-term rentals. And then we quickly went to duplexes, kind of similar to your story, Darrel, it seems like. Then we went to duplexes, then we went to quads, and then we went to 42 unit, and then we went to a 16 unit. And it, so it just kind of kept going on and on like that. So that's kind of how I got started in real estate investing, and wouldn't change anything. For some reason, it bothers me that I've never truly fixed and flipped something. Like I've done 2 live-in flips. They're a lot easier without kids. Okay.
True. Yep.
but I've never done a fix and flip where we held the property for I don't know why. I don't know if like I feel like HGTV is going to call once they see me doing one. We got to have this guy. And
it's like you're not a real estate investor until you've done a fix and flip. You know,
I know.
Yeah.
There's something there. I don't know. Maybe it's still on it's on my bucket list. Let me put it that way.
You know, the closest to a fix and flip I've done is we bought a place, we lived in it, and then we turned it into a long-term rental. And then, you know, we've done that twice.
It's a live-in
very, yeah. I mean, so fortunately, I was military, so I was moving every couple of years. So you move in, you live there for a year or two, you move out, you put tenants in. But when we decided to sell both those properties, I mean, they had been, you know, rentals for 10 or 12 years apiece. So the closest I did to a flip is, okay, we're putting this on the market. We just got the tenants out. Now we've got to make it look pretty, you know? And so that's the closest I've done to a flip. I haven't done the traditional, go buy a place, fix it up, put it back on the market 2 months later. So part of me wants to do that.
Maybe you and I need to do a deal together like that. How about
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. Just pick one.
And Darrel's coming along too. Okay.
I don't know. I'm actually, maybe a little bit closer than you guys. So I actually have a 2-unit that I literally just finished renovating last week. Okay. The goal is to have it as a rental, but you know, kind of it's got me thinking like, yeah, maybe I just sell it. So
yeah. So how about this, Darrel? You can lead us through the fix and flip process since you.
There you go.
There we go. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people who get into the industry start with fix and flips, and you know, partially due to HGTV and all the other, you know, the TLC, all the other fix and flip channels or shows where they show you how to do it, and people always make money on those shows, it seems. So, but yeah, that's cool. So one thing I like to dive in is these transition areas. You talked about, you know, a little bit about, you know, wife and kids or upcoming kids and the acquisition and everything that pushed you into real estate. Can you go a little more into that time frame and, you know, go a little bit more into why real estate and why that appealed to you at the time?
Yeah. So why real estate? Well, Google magic, right? It led me to see all these articles of why real estate. And it really, and this is how bright I am. And this is why I can confidently say, if anybody can do it, I can do it. But I started looking at my family, right? And my grandparents, they were doing the BRRRR strategy before it ever had a name. And we're talking about in the 50s and the 60s, because my dad, you know, my parents still live in the house that I grew up in. My dad tells me they're never moving, because when he was a child, they moved 20 different times by the age he was 16. They were not in the military. He was not in the military. This is like around town. And it is a lot. And they would buy a property, fix it up, and then go to the next one. And then what I love about my dad, he's owner financing this house now, is the house that my grandparents, I knew was my grandparents' house. My granddad was driving by, saw a guy taking the front porch off this house, stops by and says, "Hey, you mind if I get some of the spare lumber?" And the guy taking the porch off says, "I tell you what, I'll give you the whole house if you can have it moved in 60 days. And so that is now the house that my grandparents, that I know as my grandparents' house. So they move it. They move it to a lot that's next to an apartment building. And my grandparents ended up buying that apartment building.
Wow.
And so I'm sitting here thinking, you know, this realization comes to me when they're all passed and gone. Right. And I'm sitting here thinking, God, this is kind of like in my DNA. Why have I not tapped into this before? Why am I trying to make it in corporate America with my spinning propeller head? I'm a computer nerd, right? Yeah. And so why have I not just gravitated? I could have learned so much from them and their experiences, and I didn't, never tapped into it. And so, you know, it was a lot of the pressure. I mean, when I say the acquisition was bad, it was bad. I mean, it was one of those things where you question yourself as a man, as just, hey, what the heck am I doing? I got to do something different. And I was lucky enough to find real estate and kind of go back to those family roots and start our journey. And then you fast forward 6 years later, in 2020, I was laid off from COVID. Now I had transitioned to a new company, love my job, love the guys that I work with, love the guys who work for me. And it was a total shock, right?
Yeah.
But we had built up our portfolio enough to where we didn't really have to worry about it. Now, I had a sizable salary that went away, and we've had to adjust to try to
Yeah.
figure that out, right? And because we were going and doing whatever we wanted to, not really looking at what our checkbook or budget would. I mean, we were staying on budget, but we had a very loose budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that happened in 2020. And then it took my wife about a year to say, hey, you know, we don't really have jobs. Why aren't we traveling? You know, so
Yeah.
so in June of 2021, she finally convinced me, hey, we need to convert our primary house to an Airbnb. We did, and we've been traveling ever since. So I look back now at the 9 to 5 lifestyle, and I'm just like, how did I do that? How did I say, this is okay, this is what you're supposed to do? But I still have good friends who are still in that, and I get it. And because the light hasn't clicked for them yet. And I'm like, I don't know that we could live any other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah, it totally does. And I mean the drop off in income, I mean, I was active duty making, a low 6-figure salary, but very comfortable. And same thing. I retired instead of getting laid off. That consistent income, that a lot of people call your W-2 a drug. They liken it to a drug. And I think in a lot of ways it is. I've been going through withdrawals, but I've been making enough off of real estate that we've maintained the same lifestyle. It's just not from a W-2 anymore. And we do have the opportunity to travel. Now, I don't think I'll quite put my house up as an Airbnb yet. I've got, an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old, but God, it sounds fun. It's a lot of fun.
Brian, you can do it. We have a 7, 5, and 3. You can do it.
Oh, really? Are you guys homeschooling?
Yep.
Okay.
I say that so confidently, like I'm involved in the process. I'm not. It's my wife. She's the teacher. I'm the principal. When they get out of get out of sort, she sends them to the principal office. So
I've got a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old, and they were young when I was in the military, and something that there comes a point, I would say somewhere between 8 and 13, 8 and 14, where the kids really want to start growing roots, and that's the I've got 2 kids in that frame right now. So I think had I not picked up and moved every 1 to 2 years for the last 20, that nomadic lifestyle would be fun. But now that I think about it, there's a reason I got out of the military. But,
I will say it is not for everybody, and there was an adjustment period that we went through for sure. I mean, I didn't know that we were going to make it 3 months, and I'm like, well, we got to make it longer than that because our house is rented out. Like, we can't go home, and we've been home 2 separate times, one month each time in the last 13 months. So
nice.
Are you home now?
No.
Where are you now?
We're in Wilmington, North Carolina.
I like Wilmington. It's a nice area.
Never been here. Wife's never been here. I could, if we stayed here longer, I could totally see where my hair is going to get longer, and I'm going to hang out with the surfing dudes all day. Because there's a lot of, we call it Gulf Breeze home, right? Which is near Pensacola. And, but I've never seen as many surfers as I've seen here. And I get it, because every time we go to the beach, which is like 3 or 4 times in the week, the waves are exactly the same. There are great surfing waves. We don't get that on the Gulf of Mexico. It's either flat or you can't get in the water. You know what I mean? So,
and I'll tell you, compare it to the California coast, the water's warm too. So we used to live just up the coast from you. I mean, if you look at a map, Camp Lejeune, Big Marine Base, is about 60 miles north, and I was a little bit further north of that at Cherry Point Air Station. So we spent a lot of time on those that eastern North Carolina coast and coastal Carolina, and it's beautiful beaches, and it's something that I definitely like going back to a lot. Anyway, happy that you guys can live that nomadic lifestyle. I think eventually I'm going to want to get back into that. There's a certain allure to moving every 2 to 3 years. Certain allure to being able to call a different place home all the time. Or
I would imagine it's different when you can decide when and where you're going to go versus when you're told when and where you can go. I don't know. I think.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, most of the times the Marine Corps said, "Hey, you're moving." I was like, all right, that sounds all right. But there were a couple of times that it was just like, whoa, well, hold the phone. What did you say? Okay. All right. All right. All right. Hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. So yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. But so let's go back to apartments for a second. I think we do need to bring apartment investing somewhere in here, but let's do this. Let's pick your first or pick your favorite apartment deal and tell us a little bit about, acquiring it and how it's gone.
Do you want a like a horrible story, or do you want a success story? Let's do that.
Ooh, you know what, Darrel? I'm going to leave that up to you. Which one do you want to hear? We
Let's
got a
go
one-person
horrible.
audience today.
Yeah, let's go horrible. We hear too many success stories.
All right, let's
All
go
right,
horrible.
So, this is horrible. So this is the current apartment complex in our portfolio, and there's a
Mhm.
reason why it's horrible. But you asked me how we found it, the
Mm-hmm.
acquisition, and whatnot. So I probably said this more times than I've relied on it. Finding deals and finding opportunities is a total relationship business,
Mhm.
right? And the way that I found this deal, I've got a guy who he's in my mastermind. He just calls
Mhm.
me up one day. He goes, "Hey, what's this whole mentor thing look like?" And I
Mhm.
didn't really have I don't have a mentor program, but I was like,
Mhm.
I don't, what do you mean? And he goes, man, he and I, very similar jobs, very similar backgrounds, hates what he's
Mhm.
doing. He's trying to, and I envy him because he gets started about 7 years before I did. Growing family, right? And so, I was like, well, here, look, you find a deal. Let's start here. You find a deal. I'll underwrite it. We'll talk about it and see if it's worth exploring. Right.
Mhm.
So the next thing I know, he's filling up my inboxes with
Mhm.
deals that he's finding, some from realtors, some off market stuff. And so about a few months go by, and he finally calls me and goes, "I think I got us a deal." And I was
Mhm.
like, "All right, tell me what's going on." And he's like, "I was at the hunting camp this past
Mhm.
weekend, and a couple guys there I didn't know. We just got to talking." Darrel, this is kind of a success and a horror story at the same time.
Okay,
So,
Mhm.
he goes, "We just got to talking," and he connected me with his buddy who is a broker in South Alabama. I already called him, told him, said, "Hey man," asked him one of those questions you told me to ask, is what do you have right now? What are you trying to get rid
Mhm.
of? And the broker brought up a deal that had been under contract for, I think it was going on 45 days. The potential buyer had not done any sort of due diligence at all, never been to the property. The
Mm.
broker felt like that it was going to fall out of contract in like a week
Yeah.
or so, a week and a half. We submitted our offer before they went out of contract
Mhm.
and said, we'll pick it up and run with it. Of course, we had never dealt with this broker before, and they're asking a bunch of questions. They want to make
Yeah.
sure the next potential buyer they bring to the table is actually going to close. And we did. We found that deal through where it started was a hunting conversation at a hunting camp.
Yeah.
That asset has performed. Now, here's where the horror story comes in. We've only made distributions to the ownership one time, and the ownership has been very patient. The property management has failed us horribly to the point
Mhm.
we're now taking that back in house. And
Yeah.
it's a 16 unit, right? So it's a 16 unit. And I put a lot of this on my shoulders because I'm the managing member. I should have been on top of this more than
Mhm.
I was, right? But it was one of those things. We took it back, and we've got tens of thousands of dollars in rent that has not been collected. No eviction notices served.
Oh,
Now, some of this was going
Yeah.
through COVID, so it was kind of a gray area, right? And then as of this week, I finally get in touch or working with one of the tenants there who keeps telling me he's got a water leak. And he's had a water leak for 3 months that he was trying to get fixed with the
Yeah.
property management group. It's going to cost us probably about 10 grand to get that unit,
Mhm.
the mold remediated and just everything back to normal.
And something that the
so
property manager, if they would have taken care of that leak immediately, yeah, no mold.
maybe $500, maybe $1,000.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
small
no,
plumbing
and
problem.
yeah. And so the property manager is just completely failed us, but ultimately it falls on my shoulders, right?
Yeah.
For not having a better, and it's lessons learned
Mhm.
from that. So that's kind of the horror story. That is a turnaround
Yeah.
project. We're getting stabilized. Matter of fact, this month, with us
Mhm.
taking over, is probably going to be the first month since we bought it a year ago where all the
Mhm.
tenants are going to pay on time.
Nice.
So it's one of those things where I can't believe that happened, but it's all on me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had issues with management. Just curious, how big is the city this is in?
Not very big. It is a
Okay.
tertiary, if not a quadutiary. I don't know if that's the actual term.
Is it a tertiary to a tertiary? Yeah.
Yes.
We've got,
it's a small town.
We have a couple in small towns, and that the management has really been hit or miss. It all depends on that person that comes in. But one thing that I've realized after owning a lot of properties in tertiary markets is it's hard to get good management in those tertiary areas. There's just not a very large pool of potential employees. Yeah, we've had some issues with some of our properties. We've showed up to some of the properties and what's going on here, type stuff because of the poor management. But I think that's the nature of tertiary markets in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and in the I guess one area where I
Mhm.
made a misstep is this property manager. And they managed another property for me half for years,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
there was an established working relationship.
Mhm.
Always done a great job. Always hit specific numbers on a return for this property. And then we handed this to them, and it's just like, what in the heck
Boom.
has happened?
Yeah.
And that's where I was kind of a little laissez-faire of letting them just do what they needed to do and listening to the BS stories that they were giving us. So
Well, congratulations on the turnaround, at least. I mean, getting everybody to pay rent on time is huge. Hopefully things turn up from here. I mean, take it in-house and make those numbers look like a hockey stick, So
oh yeah.
I think, yeah. So yeah, good luck on that. And thanks for actually sharing horror stories. Most people when they come on podcasts, they're like, oh, you want me to pick which one to talk about?
Yeah.
I'll pick the
Let
good
me tell you how I
example.
provided a 300% return. Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah,
that wasn't going to be my
you know.
success story, but no, the horror stories, everybody needs to hear them
Yeah.
because it's real. I mean, it does
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. And I'm guessing, but there's been enough tailwinds in the market that when you sell that, you're still probably going to make a lot of money. Just headache. Is the headache worth the amount you're going to make is the question.
I
Anyway.
think so. We bought it a year ago, and we've been getting offers,
Mhm.
verbal offers. None have stuck to the point yet, but we get verbal offers probably one a month.
Yeah, and we've gotten a lot of unsolicited offers on our properties as well, and it's kind of nice to see those numbers. Interesting talking about the market. I mean, in 2000, a year ago, those numbers were progressively getting higher and higher and higher. And now the unsolicited offers on the properties we're getting kind of peaked and are actually going down a little bit. So when we're getting those unsolicited offers, those LOIs that are signed before they look at the property, that the pricing has changed a little bit, but
Just a little bit. Yeah.
we're still in good positions. I mean, we've had a lot of really, really good tailwinds in the markets. Anyway, that said, real quick, you talked about your why a little bit in your story, but if you could just distill it down into maybe 30 to 60 seconds, what is your big burning why?
Yeah. Well, you asked me, what gets me up in the morning, and literally it's my kids. Now, most mornings I try to get up before them because it's probably my most productive time of the day, right? But literally it is my kids, and that burning why drifts, right? But it ultimately comes back to them because, when I first started this journey and started getting clarity of what I wanted to do, now that I don't have a W-2 to worry about, it's I want to focus on, I want to do something nobody in my family's ever been able to do. And I want to provide, 300 years of generational wealth to my family. Right. So when I'm nothing but bones in the ground, right, people were talking about, hey, that was Paul J or whatever they call me, and so that's kind of drifted around a little bit to the point where I still have my eyes on that because it's motivating. I would never obtain that. I realize that, but I'm trying to prove myself wrong. I'm one of those guys who I'm my biggest critic. Doesn't matter what anybody says about me. I've beat myself up more than anybody else is going to do. And so I know I'm not going to be able to do that, but it's super, super motivating to try to accomplish it. Right. And so it sits there. And then we started doing this whole traveling thing. Right. And I'm thinking, how cool. And so our current goal, our current really focus is to have vacation properties in multiple places.
Mhm.
And we live there during the off season because we don't like crowds. We don't like being around
Yep.
people. And so we will go to these places during the off season, and during the busy season, they're just income
Yeah.
producing assets.
They're full.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we do, some slow traveling and whatnot. So that's kind of the current focus tied to the big goal.
Yeah.
And then, that's for me personally on the W2 capitalist side of things.
Mhm.
I want to help 1 million people find financial freedom through real estate investing.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
it. That's like 1% of the entire workforce.
Yeah, it's a small. It seems like a large number, but when you look at how many people there are, it's really small in comparison. But let's ask this question. One of my favorite questions. I got a lot of favorites. Everything's my favorite. But what's next for you?
I was talking about the relationship business of
Mhm.
deals. So on the more immediate horizon, the folks who sold us the apartment complex, the horrible story, they have other assets in their portfolio. And through this entire relationship process where we made the first offer on the last one, we knew that about them, and we've been talking to them and making sure, hey, you get ready to sell anything else,
Mhm.
please let us have first right of refusal. Right. So they've got a couple mobile home parks. We've submitted initial verbal offer as of last week. And then something cool that I'm doing that I'm working on with a couple of guys is one of the pain points inside of the W2 Capitalist Mastermind is funding for deals. And so I'm in the process of launching my own mortgage brokerage. So we
nice.
can connect lenders with more than qualified borrowers, right? That we have some relationship with. Those are two heavy things right now that are on my plate.
But let's just take a little side note, and can you tell us about the W2 Capitalist Mastermind? I know several people who've been involved with that and have done great things. So tell us what you provide in that mastermind and how people can learn more about it.
Yeah, it is a community. We like to call ourselves a community of accountability. And if you're not familiar with the word mastermind, there is no silver bullet for that definition, except for it is a group of people coming together about a common goal, right, in a positive manner. And so if you lack motivation or you're just not sure about it, get surrounded by people who are doing the same things you are wanting to do, but may have just a little bit more success or a little bit more experience with you. And that is going to exponentially grow your experience, your wealth, everything else, get you closer to your goals. Right. And so in the W2 Capitalists, we're a virtual master, primarily virtual. We had our first in-person event last year. We've been going on for 3 years now. We've got over 20 calls a month. And it's just, when I say calls, they're virtual calls just like this. I don't lead all of them. We have folks who are specialized, like some of the calls are specialized for short-term rentals and multifamily. And there are people more well suited to lead those than me. And so they're led by those folks. And it's just amazing to sit back and kind of see how people's lives change just by getting around people of similar likes. Right. And one of the things I love to kind of pride ourselves on is 80% of our members who join, they join, that's why they call it a member. 80% of our members double their portfolio within the first 11 months.
Nice.
And it's just, it's crazy. And that's
awesome.
from attending 2 calls a month.
Wow. Yeah. There's something to be said about being around other people who are doing, and I think the first time I started going to conferences, being around other people who are doing ends up being contagious. Whether it's a mastermind or a group, I think that's one of the biggest keys to my success was putting myself around those people, because one of the doubts I had personally was, I can't do this. My dad was a mailman. He didn't have any investments, I'm military, military guys don't get rich. I had some hangups over whether I could do it or not. But when I started getting around people who did, I started looking left and right. And I'm like, wow, his background's similar than me. I'm like, man, that guy's dumb. And he's got, thousands of units. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said in that. So anyway, we're going to shift gears, and, Darrel, welcome to the show. I know we've brought you into the conversation a couple times anyway, but welcome and thanks for being here.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, now let's do this. Same first question I asked Jay. We just want to hear about you. Tell us about yourself. Where you come from, what you're doing, and why real estate's appealing to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, to be quite honest, my background is pretty similar to Jay's and pretty similar to yours as well, Brian. Background, I'm from Chicago. I born and raised. I've moved around a little bit here and there, but for the most part, been here in Chicago. Real estate got introduced to me kind of at a young age, about 16, 17, when I was younger, when I was about 13. My father passed away. My mom kind of left the bag to my mom, and kudos to her. She really pulled things together and started learning. She was learning a lot about investing, things like that. So she packed her bags and moved to Arizona about a year after that, and she started in investing out there. She had a few properties, and I saw how that kept her afloat until she started figuring things out. Eventually she ended up getting a W-2, still keeping a few of those properties. So I mean, just seeing that really intrigued me. It showed me the kind of the power of real estate. She handed me down her book that she was reading, which happened to be Rich Dad Poor Dad. And at 16, 17, I was not a reader, right? I hated reading, things like that. But that book just really, I was glued to it. That's where the interest first started. I also seen a lot of the hardships with it, right? Kind of getting those calls, right? That, how they say fixing toilets at 2 a.m., things like that, pulling money out of pocket to fix things. And, I just thought to myself, there's definitely got to be a better way. So I started doing research, things like that. And unfortunately, as I started getting a little older, the whole, hey, go to school, get a good job kind of started taking over.
As it does for just about everybody. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I went that route, and, I wouldn't say I regret it. I just wish I would have still kind of kept my passion a little bit more for real estate as well. And I don't regret it, because it allowed me to get this kind of high paying job. I'm in software sales, similar to you were, Jay, right? So, I mean, that income definitely helps now.
How did you put it, Jay? You were wearing your propeller hat? Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay. Good. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I still got my hat on. So waiting for the day so I could take it off.
Take it off, throw it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and for the most part, I really like this job. This industry, it's taught me a lot. I get to speak to C-level executives, kind of get their thinking right. And in a way in itself, that's kind of a bit of a mentorship or learning experience, if you will, from there, right? Just to see what kind of these high net worth people, like how they think and what comes to their mind, things like that. And a lot of them through sales, you kind of become almost friends, and I've kept relationships.
That's something that I think is invaluable. And I wish I had. I spent 20 years in the military. I know what military leadership is like. I think C-level suite, I'd love to be able to have that experience and just poke my head in on what C-level executives, we never had to worry about the bottom line in the military. I mean, we had a budget, and our job was to spend it, but anyway, I'd love to be able to have that. I think that's you mentioned it's useful. I think it's extremely useful. So yeah.
Can I play devil's advocate here?
Let's do it.
So I think it's extremely useful if you want to follow in their footsteps. Now, I know you have to be around them for your job and whatnot, Darrell. But if it's not pertaining to your job, like if it's outside, don't go seek hanging out with those folks. Go find high net worth real estate investors and go and pick their brains and get an education from them.
Now, right? I'm looking at it from the standpoint.
Unless you're going to continue to go the W-2 route.
I'm looking at it from the standpoint of building an investment empire, and so I don't have the C-level experience. I've worked with, colonels and general officers and whatnot, and a couple of admirals here and there. So I know what it takes to run, a military organization, but business is different. And that's where I come from, being around the C-level executives to know how to do that in business as well. But that's what I'm working on right now anyway.
And from my experience, when I say that, the C-level executives that I reported to, very small portion. I'm trying to think of one. There's one of my last 10 bosses that actually invested in real estate. He was also the most successful, by the way. I'm just thinking, so if you can get that exposure from somebody who also does real estate, I think that's the perfect point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. One question for you, Darrell, before we launch into your specific questions. What's your big burning why?
Like I mentioned, working software sales, I do like it. Having that passion for real estate investing, it's always been there. So I'm just starting to realize it. I have a family. I have a wife who's actually helps me in this venture as well. And kind of just one day we were like, we make good money. We don't have a bunch of money in our bank accounts. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So we had to take a step back, right, and really start prioritizing those values, right? Our health, our financials, getting things together. And kudos to her for, she's supported me this whole way, but we've partnered together. She's an interior designer, so that goes a long way. She helps me with the kind of budgeting side of it. Hey, maybe we could get another room here, things like that. But ultimately, I mean, my big burning why, again, very similar to your, Jay. I want to build that generational wealth. We have a 16-year-old son. I want to build something to leave him, and not only that, I want to be the example as well, right? I want them to see the hardships where we started and kind of where we've gone and the steps in the way to hopefully they can build those skills as well and far surpass wherever I get to. Ultimately, that's really what I want, kind of build that generational wealth and knowledge to pass down for generations to come. And
that is definitely part of it. And is making sure it passes from generation to generation. Matter of fact, I was talking about CFP this morning and some things that we're doing, kind of moving around on the personal side. And he said, all right, now we've got this set up. We got to start educating the kids. And I'm like, well, they're 7, 5, and 3. He goes, no better time to start than right now.
Best time.
Like, all right. You make a point.
There you go. There you go.
We're absolutely. I mean, I mean, I've just seen from, my upbringings, some people, Jay, they just don't get that kind of mind shift. And I find myself very lucky for, whatever reason it was that mind shift happened to me, at a pretty early age. And then some people just don't realize it till sometimes it's, they're a little older, things like that. So I definitely like to instill that, as early as possible.
Yeah. And some people that are as dumb as me don't realize that until they're like 35 that they've had all this experience in their family and never thought to ask questions.
Yeah. It's interesting. So, hey, we're already kind of in that period already. So I'll just say it. Darrel, we got Jay on the line. What do you want to ask him today?
So I have a few here, and I think one it has a little bit to do with having this W-2 and having the real estate goals, right? So I mean, like I mentioned, I've had that mind shift kind of click in where me and my wife are on the same page, right? We're doing the health thing, right? Working out, eating right, getting the knowledge, things like that. But just for whatever reason, we tend to kind of fall into ruts every about like 6 to 8 months, and they tend to be pretty long sometimes. It's like sometimes it'll be like a month, 2, or we're just like eating like crap, or not doing what you should be doing. Like, what are some of the things that you've done to kind of pull yourself out of that?
Yeah, and that is normal, at least in my experience. Sorry, I didn't mean to kick the table. That is completely normal. There are almost every member of the mastermind goes through that as well. And so I'm going to lean on that as you, and I actually think taking a break is good. I mean, you've got so many things going on. You're a family guy, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a W-2 guy, you're an investor, right? You make up what I consider as a W-2 capitalist. So you're doing all those things. If for some reason you don't get burnout on one of those things, something's wrong with you. You might be a robot. You know what I mean? So I think it's okay to take a break. And so what are you going to take a break from? Right? Are you going to take a break from being a good dad? No. Are you going to take a break from being a good husband? No. Are you going to take a break from being your W-2? Well, you might, but the consequences of you losing that income stream is probably going to be detrimental at this point, right? So you have to take a break. But I think the key part of your question there is, what do you do when those times, is extended period of time? And I love this quote from Jocko, and it is a little bit contradictory to what I just said, but he's asked, Jocko Willing, he's asked, hey, what was the question is, what do you do on the days when you don't want to go to the gym? And his answer is, I go anyway. And he goes, I go anyway. It doesn't matter if I'm just going through the motions. I'm getting some work in. And so what you just told me reveals that you're somewhat of a perfectionist, probably beating yourself up that I'm not consistently doing this every day. Perfectionism is not the way to be. Realize that when you need to take a break, but when you just need to go through the motions, and don't worry about anything else. Give yourself some grace, man. And just go through the motions. And if it goes for too long, and this is where, it sounds like you're very intuitive about what's going on in your environment. Set a mental time frame. Say, all right, it's the 2nd of August. If I'm still going through the motions in a week, I need to call somebody who's going to put you back on track, right? And set that mental time block. And again, if you're in a mastermind, chances are they're going to be like, it's so funny. We have people in the mastermind that come in and they're like, I'm taking a break. I'm not going to do any more acquisitions. And we now label that as, okay, you're about to be flooded with deals, because every time somebody has come in and made it publicly known to the mastermind of taking a break, it's usually within 24 to 72 hours, they have a killer deal that they can't say no to. Right? And so all of a sudden they find their motivation again. So I would just, do all those things. But when you find yourself in a rut, you need to raise your hand. You need to tell the universe, hey, I'm taking a break, and have somebody keep you accountable to not take that long of a break. Right.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned, right? Like, what are you going to take a break from? All these things going on. And because that's usually how it is. It's not like I'm sitting at home doing nothing, right? The W-2 is still there. I'm still doing that. It's just
you can't take a break from being a dad.
A lot of life.
But you're a scumbag, and you don't come across as somebody who's a scumbag.
No, absolutely. Then that kind of resonated with me, right? Because I never really thought about it like that, because it is usually just kind of the real estate side, or maybe sometimes it is the W-2, but like you meant, the W-2 is pretty easy to get that back in track, especially in sales. It's like, oh man, I got to get back on
quota.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what helped me the most. And it's that there's a reason why I ask everybody what their big burning why was. I found my big burning why on a big Navy ship in the middle of the Middle East, somewhere on a big body of water. My big burning why was about my family and about my kids. And what kept me on track, what got me through those moments, was having that big burning why and stoking that big burning why fire to the point to where it was burning. And when I had those days where I didn't have the motivation, like Jocko says, discipline is better than motivation. You discipline yourself to take the actions. But if I had the day where I didn't want to do anything, or when I got 100 no's and I was just looking for that one yes, I'd always just go back to my big burning why and be like, okay, I need to keep doing this. And that was the answer. So, all right, we got time for one more quick question and answer. So Darrel, if you got one more, one most important question, hit it.
Let's see here. So I guess it's kind of I'm going to cheat a little. It's a multi-point question. And this is going to be, for me, right? So currently, like I mentioned, I have about 4 doors right now. They all kind of, I don't want to say fell into my lap, but sort of kind of did, right? So one, it's a condo that
it sounds like you were networking with a bunch of people, and then they just threw opportunities at you that made sense.
And that's kind of right. So one of them, it was a condo that I used to live in. I found a house that had a basement apartment, so I'm house hacking that. The condo I kept as a rental. The 2 unit that I actually have is it got handed down to me by my grandfather. He passed away, along with a couple other family members. So I mean, right now I'm kind of in a crossroads of, do I kind of hold these, pull out a HELOC, and reinvest the money? Should I sell them? Just kind of with things that seem to be changing so fast, in the market here with, finding like HELOCs are harder to find, or, even more expensive or harder to find. Some are just not even doing them. It's just, I'm kind of in that crossroads now. I had a plan, previous to all this happened, this kind of, but like Mike Tyson said, right? Everybody has a plan to like punch them in the face.
Punch the mouth.
So that's kind of where I'm at here. So I mean, I guess, your thoughts, what would you do, I guess? Would you kind of hold or sell and do something else? Because again, you also hear so many people, I got half the people in my ear saying buy, and kind of the other half saying sell, and wait to see what happens. So it's just kind of odd times for me here.
So what is your goal for the next 12 months?
So for the next 12 months, I said, so I want to continue investing. I just sold, or I just, finished that rehab. I got renters in there, cash flowing beautifully. So next steps really is to, find the next one. And it's, I'm a little cash poor right now, but equity rich, right? So I do have quite a bit of equity in a lot of the stuff that I got.
Yeah.
It's just kind of making the right move, I guess.
Yeah, and only you're going to know the right move, right? What's going to make
Mhm.
sense for you, and how does it align your goals with generational wealth? And here's a little. There's a book I just read. I say I just read it. I picked it up a couple months ago, and I can't put. I've listened to it twice. I bought the print version. It's called The Road Less Stupid. Okay, it's
Mhm.
by Keith Cunningham, I think, is the author. And he asked this one question is. To know if you're on point, right, is when
Mhm.
you're presented with a new opportunity, how does it align with your goals, right? And I've kind of adapted that to say, if I can't answer this new opportunity, like how it aligns with my 300 generational wealth building goal,
Mhm.
if I can't answer that question like that, it's a no. I'm not going to go explore that opportunity, right? If there's a little bit of a pause, then I'll try to, but
Yeah.
it's basically that is kind of my barometer of should I chase anything or not, because as you continue to do this, you're going to have plenty of opportunities come up. So ask yourself that question, right? And I know I'm giving you your answer with a question, but
No, yeah.
you're going to
Yeah.
know that. But also on the same front is, I love leverage. I think that's one of the ways that you're gonna really exponentially grow. It's also going to do some asset protection for you. And a lot of people, when they talk about doing asset protection, um, it never really involves in making sure your properties are leveraged, because if you don't have any equity in a property, a lawyer may look at that and be like, I don't have anything that I can actually take away for
Yeah.
payment
Right.
They
of my
can't sue you
services
and get money.
and get money. So you said, am I going to buy or pull a HELOC? Well, or excuse me, am I going to hold on to it, or am I going to pull a HELOC?
Mhm.
If you're holding on to it, man, you're doing a HELOC.
Yeah.
Because a deal is going to come up, and I think, at least in the markets that we look at, right, I think we're about to enter a buy-in season, and people with cash are going to be king.
Yeah.
And even though it may be a little bit more expensive right now, take a look at the project that you're looking at, realizing that the HELOC may be expensive right
Mhm.
now, but you're going to be able to refinance here in a short period
Right.
of time for something much, much less.
All right.
And so if I'm holding a project, I have it leveraged as much as possible. And I do it two ways. If a HELOC, if I want money to go into short-term investments, right? So I'm going to do a 6-month private money loan. I'm going to use a HELOC for that, right? I'm going to get charged by the bank 5-6%. I'm going to turn around and charge whoever the borrower is 10% or 15%. So it's leverage, right? But if I know where I'm going to go into a long-term hold, then I'm going to do a cash out refi. Because I'm able to put that money to work for a longer period of time and get lower interest rates.
All right.
So
we are out of time, guys. Hate to break in. I know, right? We've been talking for a long time already. But one last question for each of you. And Jay, you get to go first with a wink, wink, nod, nod. How can listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do two things. I'll give you my website. It's w2capitalist.com, right? It's all the stuff on the mastermind. But I wasn't joking around. I was like, do I have the guts to say this? But I was going to give out my cell phone number and see who calls me, because I don't know. Let's see who calls me. But so you can reach out, text is probably best. I don't really answer the phone if I don't know your number. But it's 205-249-0248.
All right, you had the guts. So that's what the wink, wink, nod was for anybody listening. But Darrel, same question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
Darrel, give out your cell phone.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet, but no. So I mean, right now it's all mostly social. So Instagram, you can find me. My handle's Darrel_Hernandez 89. Facebook, just Darrel Hernandez, and then you can email me growthproperties21@gmail.com. And really, I'm just looking for, if you got any deals that you want to throw by me, and really trying to do some looking for JV opportunities in the multifamily space.
Perfect. Awesome. And you know what? I'll do it too. If you guys want to contact me, 619-694-9645. And I agree with what Jay said. Text me first. If I don't know who's calling, a lot of times I'll push it to voicemail. Text me first. All right. Anyway, hey, thanks a lot for coming on the show today, guys. Very much appreciate it. And that's a wrap.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community, the Tribe of Titans yet, you are missing out. So get yourself 30 days free by clicking the link below in the description, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.